We left off where we say in the second paragraph, one has to be vigilant and extra careful that you should not be seduced by your heart due to all the bounty and all the blessing which God gives you. And you will go astray, will deviate, and you'll serve alien gods. And you will bow to them. And God will become enraged with you. He will withhold the heavens, and there will not be rain. For agriculture, you need rain. Without rain, things don't grow. And the earth will not give forth its bounty. And you'll be quickly destroyed from the good land, Asher Hashem, which God has given to us, the land of Israel. So there will be withholding of rain, no bounty, and ultimately you'll be destroyed from the land. The Gemara in one location tells of her story, interesting story. Aaron alluded to it the other day. The Gemara tells us that the greater you are, one's evil inclination is even more contentious. What does that mean? So the Gemara tells of her story. There's this married woman and this other man, and Abaye, who was one of the greatest sages of the Talmudic period, he overheard a conversation between this man and woman that they were going to meet out in the marshes and they were going to commit adultery. This is what they made up. They could meet in a certain secluded, hidden location in the marshes and commit adultery. So evidently, there was a strong attraction between these two people. So Abaye overheard the conversation. He figured he would track them, he would follow them. He follows them out into the marshes, and he's hiding behind a bush there, and he hears the man saying to the woman, it doesn't make sense. If every time we want to have a relationship, a sexual relationship, we have to go out to the marshes, it's not functional. It's not a functional relationship. It's better we don't even start. Rather than get started, and it's impossible to maintain this relationship. In this context, it's better we should not start. This is the conversation Abaye over here is between this married woman and this other man, which they were about to commit adultery. So Abaye hears this and he thinks to himself, if I would have been there, would have I had the self-control not to come and commit adultery? Abaye was questioning himself. Here, these two ordinary people. The man himself is able to contain himself and walk away from it. Of course, he says it's too complicated. Abaye says, I question if I would be there, I don't know if I could have walked away. That's what Abaye thinks to himself. He comes back to the Beis Medrash. He's standing outside the study hall and he's sulking. His head is down, he's sulking. His head is leaning against the door, he's sulking. So one of his colleagues says to him, what's the problem? And he tells him over the story. And he says, I'm not sure I could have contained myself. It's very possible I would have committed adultery. And here, this ordinary person, I'm supposed to be this great Torah sage, and the temptation for me was so overwhelming, I don't think I could have dealt with it. So his colleague says to him, so you don't understand. Because you are this great Torah sage, your evil inclination is more powerful than this other person's. Why? Because that person at his level, having a very paltry amount of spirituality, he doesn't need that force to get him to sin. You, because you have mega power in the spiritual realm, it would not have been considered even a challenge if they would come to you with small firearms. To go against you, you need mega weapons. You need the most sophisticated weapons to take you down. So when the evil inclination comes to you, he comes with such a level of machination, which he doesn't provide or utilize for anybody else. The greater you are, your inclination is even greater. As you grow spiritually, your inclination grows with you. Of course, you always have to be in a position to be challenged. That's the understanding. There's a story, there's a book, it was a 3-volume work came out about the Vilna Gaon, and the Vilna Gaon had a very special inner circle of students. And the Vilna Gaon was literally his genius and his level of accomplishment in Torah is unparalleled by anybody in his time or even going back hundreds of years. And he was known as HaChosid Vilna, the Chosid, the devoutly righteous person of Vilna, scrupulously pious. And his students said to him, we're very close to him, he says, we wish we would have your inclination, your evil inclination. Because you're like a malach, you live like an angel. We wish we'd have your evil inclination. He says, you people are making a big mistake. He says, if you had my evil inclination, you couldn't survive. The only reason why I have that inclination is because my dimension in spirituality, so I should always be in a position to be challenged. God gave me this mega evil inclination. But you people, and it wasn't that he was boasting, reality are not on my level. You're less than I am. If you would have my inclination, you wouldn't survive it. You'd be pulverized. Because for me, it's on par. For you people, it's beyond, and it will be overwhelming, and you couldn't survive the challenge. So we're saying you're keeping the mitzvahs with all your heart, with all your life, and meticulous doing all the mitzvahs. And you're taking your harvest and everything else. You eat, you say it. He said the pre-bracha, he said the after bracha. The greater you are, you got to be careful. But we're speaking about devout Jews here. As it speaks, you serve God with all your heart and with all your life, and you're doing the mitzvahs perfectly. This is the evil inclination's target. This is the one he wants to ensnare. Many years ago, I was walking up Fifth Avenue Synagogue and St. Patrick's Cathedral. They always leave the doors open. Always leave the doors open. If you ever notice, you pass by, the halacha is, the law is that a person, a Jew, is not permitted to walk within 4 cubits of a house of idolatry. It's based on a verse. You have to keep your distance. Why do they leave the doors open? Because, we say eyes are the brokers of the heart. The eye sees, it lusts, and you follow your eyes. You look, you see, this curiosity. Curiosity brings to actualization. It may draw you into there. Therefore, when I pass a church, I'm never within 4 cubits, even if I have to walk in the street or go to the other side of the street. And I never, ever looked in the church. I would never look in there. You never know what level of impression that could make on you, firstly. Secondly, you never know what visual could do to a person. So I'm walking down Fifth Avenue. The doors of St. Patrick's are wide open. And there used to be a person who was a beggar on Fifth Avenue. I don't know if he was stable, if he was whatever, he was definitely unstable. And when he would approach people, especially if he looked Jewish, and I'm not sure if he was Jewish, and he would say, Stalker, you want to give him charity? I used to ignore him. So I was walking down one time past St. Patrick's, and he says to me, Rabbi, do you know where you should be? You should be in there. Why? Because they want you there. They're waiting for you to come there. Meaning you're the big catch. This is what this crazy guy said. You understand? The small fish, the minnow, let it go. The albatross, the 800-pound tuna, that's the one he wants. You understand? You serve God with all your heart and all your life, with all your wherewithal. You're doing things perfectly. So you're a person of standing in God's eyes. You know what it means to knock that person out of the box? That's the ultimate. That's the ultimate success story for the evil inclination. Therefore, you have to be extra vigilant and not allow a moment of slack. Because the moment you give the slack and you have that hesitation, he's there immediately and he takes over your life. To be convincing, even God forbid, to end up with idolatry. Doesn't always have to end up there, but it could end up there. And once it said, a person is a commander of a platoon of soldiers, and they have to go through a minefield, and you have a map of the minefield, you have a mine detector to make sure nobody steps on any mines. And this commander was so cocky, he took them through the minefield without the map, without the mine detector, and not one of his soldiers were killed. Okay? He thought he'd be heralded as a hero. He was court-martialed. Why? Because being responsible for your fellow soldiers, being in a leadership position, how do you act so irresponsibly taking through a minefield? You have no choice is one thing. You have a map, you have a mine detector. Why don't you use the map? Well, I thought I could do it on my own. But instead, that's insubordination. Because when you take a group of soldiers through that minefield, you're supposed to have the map and the mine detector. Well, I did it differently. There's no differently. You deserve to be court-martialed. And even be brought before a firing squad, if that should be the verdict. Because you put all these people's lives in jeopardy, but they're all alive. It's irrelevant. But where did you go? The moment you allow your heart to be seduced, you never know where that can take you. So even though you didn't become the idolater, but you put yourself in a position knowing where it could end up, and you weren't concerned about it, you take the precaution, therefore you're considered guilty, and there's that claim against you, because you put yourself in a position that you could have gone off the cliff. Even though you didn't, you're still devout. Doesn't make a difference. But you didn't take that precaution. And because you didn't take the precaution, therefore there's this level of culpability, although you never crossed the line. This week's reading, we read about the curses that God forbid will come upon the Jewish people. Why will we be deserving of the curses? Because you did not, if you look in the portion, you did not serve God with a joyous heart, with joy, and with a good heartedness, despite the fact that he gave you everything. You hear this? That's what it says. The reason why the curses will come upon you, that you did not serve God b'simcha, with joy, u'b'tuv lev, of good heartedness, mirov kol, although he gave you everything. The example I always give: person, his father puts him through school, pays vacations, allowance is unlimited, everything he ever needed. Finally comes back, and the father says, "You'll be my senior vice president. I'll fix up an office for you." And the father calls his son on the intercom. He says, "Son, could you come here? I'd like to speak to you." He says, "Do I have to come here? You can't come to me." You ever hear such a thing? Whatever the son is, it's only because the father provided for it. And even where he's now, he's there only because the father put him there. And he's telling the father, "Dad, maybe you could come here, or maybe I come later." If the son has an appreciation for what the father did, he would do it with joy. After what your father has given you, then the father says, "I can't come, but I want you to come now." So it comes, the son says to the father, "I guess I have no choice. I have to come." What is that called? He's doing it begrudgingly. So you know what the father said to the son? "Do me a favor, don't come. I don't need you to come." God says, "I've given you everything. After all that I've given you, You should be singing my praises, and you should be self-motivated to come to me and do my will with joy. But you do it begrudgingly. You put on your tefillin. I guess I got to do it because I have no choice. Is that why you do? Because you have no choice? Or because you understand the relationship between you and God? You should be motivated to do with great joy, feel privilege, but you don't. God says, something, it doesn't reflect well on what this is all about. You hear it for yourself. You're not here for me. If that's the case, don't do me any favors, you're out the door. That's the basis for the curses. I remember first time I went to Israel. So I flew El Al, I flew KLM, and KLM always landed in Amsterdam. It's the Dutch Airlines. The story goes back to 1970. And, before they land, everybody runs into the lavatory to tidy up. People are shaving, people are whatever they're doing in there. Of course, when they come into those days, it was called Lud Airport, Ben Gurion today, and they have their well-wishers waiting for them. They want to look okay. So there's this person sitting on the plane, must be about 6'4", an Israeli. He speaks Yiddish, a 5-star Yiddish. That means he comes from that kind of background. And he has a handlebar mustache, specimen of health, good-looking man, and he has his toiletry bag. And he comes back from the lavatory, and in the toilet bag, he has a can of Palmolive shaving cream. Yeah, that means he just finished shaving with a razor, which is a Torah violation. For a Jew, you're not permitted to use a straight blade because the Torah says you're not permitted to destroy the corners of your face. It's only a crosscut, not a razor. And he gets back to his seat, and he can't get this can into his toiletry bag. Pushing it in, he's trying to close the zip, it doesn't close. So he says out loud, Schwer is ein Yid. It's difficult to be a Jew. The man just finished shaving with a razor, lathering up with cream, and we can't force this can into the bag. He says, Schwer is ein Yid. It's so difficult to be a Jew. What does it have being a Jew? You understand? You do the wrong thing already. Leave the Jew out of this. Even that you blame on the Jew. God says, I've given you everything. What are you complaining about? And even when you do it begrudgingly. Know something? I don't need your favors. You go elsewhere. Let's see how you fend for yourself. Let's see how you get along without me. And then God forbid, if God withdraws, then we're subject to every level of what? Of suffering and every level of what? Of domination. And that's what Jewish history is all about. You have tickets to the World Series. You mean I have to go to hear the rabbi's lecture? You know what? I'm giving up for that. But you know what? The rabbi's lecture, if the lecture is an appropriate lecture, you got $1 billion deal. You got tickets to the World Series. The guy man says, "You mean I should do the $1 billion deal? I'm going to have such tickets." This person, he left his brains, I don't know where. If you understand what this is, what are tickets to the World Series? It's worthless. But people, that's where they leave their lives. They pass an opportunity which has infinite value, and you are beholding because what God did for you. Well, I guess I have no choice. I have to do it. Those words really touch a raw nerve, kaviyachol of God, and therefore there is that serious reaction.